On Wednesday the 22nd of July in 2020, a 28-year-old man named Davante Richardson was last seen leaving his home at 11 p.m. on Mississippi Avenue Southeast in Washington, D.C. before he would mysteriously disappear. At the time, he had confessed to friends that he had plans of meeting the famous rapper Kanye West at his secluded ranch in Cody to share his music and kickstart his career. However, despite making the 2,000-mile drive to Wyoming, he would unfortunately never make it to the ranch, and his car was discovered a week later abandoned along a dirt road next to the small town of Grable. Investigations then began, with the police conducting interviews with local residents, but despite speaking to every single person within a town of less than 2,000 people, not a single witness would come forward with a confirmed sighting of Davante. So, given the lack of witness testimony, the police then conducted a vast search across a radius of 6 miles from where his car was located, utilizing helicopters, drones, and canine units. But despite their enormous efforts, no further evidence would be uncovered, leading the police to believe that foul play may have been involved. However, after 4 years of investigating, the case of Davante Richardson still remains a mystery, with the leading theory being that he was likely waved down by a local resident of Grable before having his life cruelly taken. But with next to no evidence to corroborate this, alongside a complete lack of cooperation from the town, it is no surprise that his grieving family are only left to wonder what really happened to Davante Richardson, and who could be responsible. Davante Richardson was born in the early 90s to his loving parents in the city of Washington, D.C., alongside his younger sister. Not too much is known about his childhood, but what we do know is that Davante was brought up in a very warm household where he maintained a close-knit relationship with his family, especially his auntie Marquita, who was present throughout his entire life. Growing up, Davante was known to be on the quieter side, with friends describing him as somebody who would usually keep to himself. But during these times of solitude, he would no doubt be working on his music, which was always something he had a huge passion for. However, after graduating from high school, Davante quickly realized that his dream of one day becoming a famous music producer was something that would not come easy. So in order to ensure he had some money coming in, he ended up getting a job at a local grocery store called Shoppers, where he would eventually work his way up to becoming the store manager in his mid-20s. So at the time, things seemed to be on the up for the budding musician, as he was not only achieving success in his career, but he was also slowly building up a catalogue of songs that he would share on social media. However, in one moment it seemed that everything would suddenly change, when COVID-19 would begin to sweep the nation, eventually causing Davante's store to close, and for the then 28-year-old to be out of work. But in typical Davante fashion, he wouldn't let this situation stop him from achieving his dreams. So rather than feeling sorry for himself, he instead began working for a local car share service called Lyft, where he continued to bring in money to help support himself and his family. So at this point, things seemed to be slowly improving, as although this wasn't his preferred position, the job gave him a large amount of freedom to work on his music production, which he continued to do throughout the year. However, just as things started to look up for Davante, he would unfortunately begin to show signs of mental illness, which was highlighted by his strange decision to head out to Wyoming to meet his musical idol and supposed friend, Kanye West, after allegedly speaking with him over Twitter. But what had started as a mildly concerning situation would soon escalate into something much darker, when the troubled young man would suddenly disappear on that fateful day in July. On Wednesday the 22nd of July, the 28-year-old would say goodbye to his family at approximately 11 p.m. as he headed out the door of their Washington, D.C. home located on Mississippi Avenue Southeast. At the time, Davante's family were unsure where he was going, but given the fact that he was a grown man, they didn't ask too many questions, and they would have no idea that this would be the final time they would ever see their loved one. That very same night, there were storms in the local area which were so bad that the lights in the house would suddenly shut off due to a power outage caused by the extreme weather. So, wanting to ensure her son was safe and kept up to date with the situation, she then messaged Davante to inform him of the power outage and to check on his well-being. At first, however, there was no response, eventually leading his mother to panic that something had happened. But soon enough, he would end up replying to her message the next day with a short but understanding text, temporarily relieving his mother of the panic she was feeling, before he would eventually go silent once again. Time would then tick by, with Davante continuing to ignore all calls and messages from his family, and as the days stacked up, the previous concern for his safety would begin to resurface, as it had now been around 4 days since his last message, and it was very unusual for Davante to spend this long away from home. So, concerned for her son's safety yet again, she then contacted Davante's sister to see if she had heard from the missing young man. But she was soon heartbroken to find out that not only had her son been ignoring his sister's messages as well, but that one of his friends had revealed that Davante was actually out of state, as he had intentions of meeting up with Kanye West in the faraway town of Cody, Wyoming. However, after reporting him missing to the local police, that very same day a discovery would be made that still haunts the family of Davante Richardson to this day. On Monday the 27th of July, the Metropolitan Police would receive a call from the Bighorn County Sheriff's Department out in Wyoming, as they had found an abandoned car near the town of Grable with a Washington, D.C. license plate under the name of Davante Richardson. So, after being notified of this discovery, the detectives then began to piece together a rough timeline of events to better understand what could have happened, and given the details provided by Davante's family, it was eventually concluded that the troubled young man had more than likely decided to drive over 2,000 miles across the country, with the intention of meeting Kanye West at his ranch in Cody, Wyoming. At the time, it was unknown if these plans were based in reality or if Davante had simply convinced himself that this would be a good idea. But either way, the decision to travel out to a remote town that he had never been to before was something that the police were extremely concerned about, and so with this new piece of information, they asked the Bighorn County Sheriff's Department to begin conducting their own investigation, as this car discovery meant that there was a high probability that Davante was somewhere in the local area. However, after interviewing the entire town of Grable, the local detectives were still unable to uncover any potential leads, with only one witness coming forward to claim they saw Davante at a McDonald's, which was later proven to be false. So, with no witnesses to work with, the Sheriff's Department then decided to conduct a widespread search across a 6-mile radius of where Davante's vehicle was found, utilizing helicopters, drones, and canine units. But somehow, despite their enormous efforts, they would continue to fall short, with no new evidence coming to the surface after numerous extensive searches. But one detail which continued to scratch the heads of the local detectives was that after finding Davante's abandoned vehicle, they immediately noticed that there were no footprints surrounding the scene, and the keys were still in the ignition. Plus, they were also able to retrieve 2 cell phones and a laptop from the back of the car, which were later proven to belong to Davante. So, given these key pieces of information, this left the police with only 2 potential theories. Either Davante had suffered from a sudden psychotic break causing him to take off into the distant mountains of Wyoming, or he had been intercepted by somebody in the area, who was therefore responsible for his disappearance. But without any evidence to corroborate these theories, the police were forced to go back to the drawing board, as they attempted to piece together this mysterious case without any concrete ideas of what could have happened. However, after 4 long years of investigating, the case is still yet to be solved, with Davante Richardson remaining a missing person to this day, leaving his family understandably heartbroken as they continue to wonder what really happened to their loved one. Now, unfortunately, as far as the official investigation goes, this is all we know for now. But despite the rather bleak circumstances, Davante's family are still holding out hope that he could return home one day, as the case has since been escalated to the FBI, who are working alongside the local police departments to try and crack the case. But in addition to this, a local resident of Grable named Angela Lassiter, who is an advocate for the missing people of Wyoming, is particularly invested in the story, as she has now spent countless hours looking into the evidence and conducting further searches for the family. So based on this, it will hopefully only be a matter of time before the truth is revealed. However, given that Davante Richardson has now been missing for over 4 years, alongside the disturbing details that surround his case, I can't help but feel that the likelihood of his safe return is only growing weaker as the years go by. So with that, let's get into some of the potential theories. Now, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, there are a number of theories which the police have been investigating, but there are two in particular that seem to stick out above the rest, which would be that Davante either suffered from a psychotic break, or he was murdered by a local resident, both of which seem to have no concrete proof to support them. So in a case where there is next to no evidence to work with, it's no surprise that after such a long time, Davante still remains a missing person. But with the little information that is available, I personally believe that there is enough there to help us understand what happened. The only problem is, there is currently no way of knowing for sure until another witness comes forward or a body is found. So with this in mind, could it actually be possible that Davante simply suffered from a mental episode the day he disappeared, leading to his self-inflicted death? Well, based on the evidence, I would say that there is a small chance that this could have occurred, as from my research I'm almost certain that Davante was suffering from some kind of mental illness around the time he disappeared, given his strange tweets and delusions of being friends with Kanye West. However, even if this was the case, this still does not prove he randomly decided to wander off into the Wyoming mountains. After all, no footprints were found next to the vehicle and not a single witness was able to confirm seeing him in Grable. Also, the police conducted several searches in the surrounding area and were able to confirm that no matter which direction Davante travelled in, he would have either ended up finding his way to another town where he would have been seen, or he would have made it to the distant mountains where the helicopters would have likely found his body. So given that the search parties were unable to find anything after conducting several searches across multiple years, this seems to indicate that if Davante did end up deceased, then his body was likely disposed of by somebody in the local area, which alludes to the possibility that the town of Grable could be home to a killer. Now, just before I get into this theory, I would like to clarify that the following information has not been verified by the police or Davante's family, and is simply my own personal opinion based on the evidence. But given the fact that Davante remains missing after 4 years, tells me that the most likely scenario here is that he is unfortunately no longer with us, which if true means that we have to remain suspicious of the fact that the town of Grable may be home to a murderer who is responsible for his death. However, if this is the case, what could have been a potential motive? Well, if you are familiar with my channel, then you will know that I've covered many cases of missing young black men who have disappeared from remote towns across America, and in almost every case, the missing person is either never found or is found deceased, with no discernible explanation. To add to this, one detail which I decided to leave to the end of this video as it has not been explicitly proven by the police, is that allegedly there was another unconfirmed sighting of Davante around 150 miles south of Grable, by somebody who claimed to witness him at a gas station before he could be seen climbing into his vehicle with a white woman. Now, if this is true, it opens up a whole new line of questioning which would lead me to believe that Davante was possibly lured out to Wyoming by a potential love interest, as well as his desire to meet Kanye. And to further corroborate this potential theory, you can actually find this information on the FBI's official website, which tells me that this sighting is a lot more than just a possibility. However, to add even more fuel to the fire, upon researching the town of Grable, I was able to uncover that the town has an incredibly low population of just 1,700 people, with approximately 0% of these residents identifying as black or African American. So you would have expected if Davante did break down in Grable that he would have surely stuck out like a sore thumb, and would have been noticed by somebody. So the fact that not a single witness from the town came forward to confirm seeing him, this tells me that they may be covering for a particular resident who could be responsible for Davante's disappearance. But before I get too carried away, I must remind you that the ideas discussed here are only theories, and so we have to be careful before drawing any concrete conclusions. But for the sake of Davante's family, I truly hope that the police are able to get to the bottom of this mystery, as I can only imagine the pain that they have suffered through over the last 4 years. Anyway, on that note, I think I'll leave this video here. And as always, if you have any theories of your own which you think may help explain what happened to Davante Richardson, please leave your ideas in the comments down below and I'll do my best to get back to you. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, and if you found this story interesting, feel free to check out the video on screen now, which covers several other cases of potential sundown towns across America.